Xi Jinping invites Srettha to Beijing for economic talks as he finalizes his new cabinet lineup. New Prime Minister, Srettha Thavisin, is promising to move swiftly to lower energy costs when the new cabinet is sworn in over the coming days, with controversies already developing over key Pheu Thai appointments. Mr. Srettha is scheduled to visit the United Nations General Assembly in New York on September 19. Thailand's new Prime Minister Srettha Thavisin was invited by China's President Xi Jinping this week to visit Beijing as he prepares to finalize his cabinet, which is expected to be sworn in by September 11. Thursday was the last day at Government House for outgoing Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha, with Mr. Srettha now taking up the reins ahead of his government being officially sworn in before an audience with His Majesty King Maha Vajiralongkorn. New Prime Minister Srettha Thavisin takes up the reins on Friday as he finalizes his cabinet lineup, which is expected to be sworn in by Monday, September 11 next. At a meeting on Tuesday, the Chinese ambassador to Thailand, Mr. Han Zhiqiang, extended an invitation to Mr. Srettha to visit China and discuss closer economic collaboration with President Xi Jinping. On Friday, Mr. Srettha Thavisin begins his tenure at Government House as Thailand's 30th Prime Minister and is expected to unveil his new cabinet lineup. The cabinet is expected to be sworn in and have its first meeting on Monday, September 11, as the screening and vetting of ministers is being finalized and subjected to royal endorsement. Mr. Srettha is also scheduled to visit New York on September 19 to attend the UN General Assembly, which opens on September 5. Courtesy call to Srettha by Chinese ambassador in Bangkok on Tuesday, an invitation from President Xi Jinping to visit Beijing to discuss economic ties. On Tuesday, Mr. Srettha received a courtesy visit from the Chinese ambassador to Thailand, Han Zhiqiang, and the minister at the Chinese embassy, Wu Zhiwu, during which the embassy officials extended the congratulations of Chinese President Xi Jinping to Mr. Srettha on his elevation as Thailand's 30th Prime Minister. The diplomatic delegation invited the new Thai premier to China on behalf of President Xi to discuss closer economic ties between the kingdom and the communist country. China is currently in the midst of economic turmoil sparked by a liquidity crisis in the local authority sector and regional banking system, as well as a threatened collapse of the country's property market. China says Thailand is a key strategic partner as it promises to work with the Pheu Thai-led government. The Chinese delegation told reporters after the meeting with the new Prime Minister that Thailand remains a key partner favored by China, which is looking forward to working with the Pheu Thai-led government to implement its policies to bring about prosperity in the kingdom. For his part, Mr. Srettha said his government was also anxious to pursue closer ties with China and was looking forward to improving relations between the two countries, including economic and cultural links. On Thursday, Mr. Srettha promised that his new government, starting with the first cabinet meeting, would initially work towards reducing the country's energy costs, which emerged during the general election campaign before May 14 this year as a key issue after the government of General Prayut Chan-o-cha left electricity costs surge after the withdrawal of key pandemic-era subsidies. Scorching electricity costs may sear the economic recovery, with a new threat to reduced inflation. Lights out for the PM's chances as people get shocked by sky-high electricity bills in the Post. The cabinet will cut energy prices soon after it gets down to work. People will not have long to wait after our first meeting, the incoming Prime Minister promised. Promise to cut energy costs, no mention of plans for a new constitution being raised at first cabinet. The incoming PM made no mention of a previous pledge, made after Pheu Thai announced the cross-polar government, which has not been popularly received by the public, to use the first cabinet meeting to initiate plans to develop a new constitution, which was to be followed by a referendum and general election as soon as it could be brought to fruition. During the week, the election-winning Move Forward Party has been urging Mr. Srettha to keep to this commitment, which was made when the cross-polar government with parties associated with outgoing military leaders was announced in the run-up to Mr. Srettha's election as Prime Minister on August 22. The leader of the conservative United Thai Nation, Ruam Thai Sang Chart, party associated with outgoing Prime Minister General Prayut Chan-o-cha, Mr. Pirapan Salrathavibaga, is tipped to become the country's new energy minister, while Mr. Supathanapong Punmi Chau, the outgoing Deputy Prime Minister who Mr. Srettha met on Wednesday to discuss the energy situation in the kingdom as the outgoing minister, will also be in the new cabinet. Mr. Supathanapong is reported to be ready to take on a new role as industry minister. Controversies surrounding Pheu Thai ministerial appointments to Defense and Prime Minister's office. Controversies have arisen on senior appointments to the cabinet, including the reported intention of the Prime Minister to appoint veteran Pheu Thai MP and politician Sutin Klongzeng as Defence Minister, something that has raised eyebrows among conservatives who favoured a former military officer for the role, in particular, General Natapal Naik Panat, a trusted figure in the outgoing government of General Prat, whose last day at Government House was Thursday. Controversy has also arisen over the planned appointment of Mr. Pichit Chumban as a minister at the Prime Minister's office. Mr. Pichit served time in prison for contempt of court in 2008 linked to alleged attempts to bribe court officials. He is a former legal advisor and lawyer for the Pheu Thai figurehead and former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra and his wife Kaniang Potchaman Napambatra. He acted for Mr. Thaksin in a 2008 case over the purchase of land on the Rajadapasek Road, which became the first case in which Mr. Thaksin was convicted while abroad. Former Thaksin lawyer raises eyebrows. Mr. Thaksin returned to Thailand on August 22, hours before Mr. Srettha was elected Prime Minister. He is currently serving an 8-year sentence for 3 subsequent convictions, as the statute of limitations had expired on the 2008 case amid controversy over the conditions of his incarceration. The plan to appoint Mr. Pichit as minister at the Prime Minister's office has been criticized by legal and political analysts, including former Election Commissioner Mr. Somchai Srisathyakorn, who acknowledged a clarification this week from outgoing Deputy Prime Minister and legal advisor Zanukriya Ingam that because Mr. Pichit was not jailed as the result of a criminal offence, he was not precluded from serving as a minister. Nevertheless, Mr. Somchai this week insisted that Mr. Pichit may not be a suitable candidate for ministerial office under the terms of the 2017 Constitution, in particular Section 160(7), which specifies that a minister may not be a person sentenced by a judgment to imprisonment, irrespective of the finality of the case or a suspension of the punishment, except for an offence committed through negligence, a petty offence or a defamation offence.